By 2035, the French airbase of Luxey, near the German border, will be home to upgraded Dassault Rafale fighters equipped with a hypersonic nuclear missile. French President Emmanuel Macron said this. As quoted by BMF TV, he promised to increase and accelerate the order for new Rafale fighters, stressing that this would be an imperative in the face of a geopolitical tipping point. Macron also stressed that the deployment of modernized fighters with nuclear missiles at the Luxey Air Base would be a key component in the constant renewal of our nuclear deterrent forces. Macron had previously stated that he had decided to start a discussion on the use of France's nuclear weapons to protect the entire European Union. We have nuclear weapons, and that is why we are better protected than many of our neighbors. I have decided to start strategic discussions on the defense of the entire continent with our nuclear weapons, the French leader said. He also emphasized that the final decision on nuclear defense will be made by the Commander-in-Chief of the French Army. On March 18th, the German parliament approved a relaxation of constitutional laws on financial loans to allow for much higher defense spending, Sky News reports. The Bundestag supported an increase in the debt threshold, and a defense package of 500 billion euros was approved. The incoming new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has been vocal about Germany and Europe standing on their own 2 feet in the face of Donald Trump, who is no longer a guarantee that America will provide Germany with security assistance. Putin's war is not only against Ukraine, but also against Europe, against our security and our freedom. We will defend ourselves against these attacks with everything at our disposal in the coming years and decades, Merz said in Parliament. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen welcomed the move, saying it was great news that Berlin had changed its constitution. This sends a very clear message to Europe that Germany intends to invest heavily in defense, von der Leyen said at a joint press conference with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen in Copenhagen. More than 200 alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua have been deported from the United States to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele said that 238 members of the Tren de Aragua gang and 23 members of the international gang MS-13 arrived in the country on Sunday, March 16. However, neither the United States nor El Salvador has provided any evidence of their involvement in criminal activity. The court had previously issued a 14-day ban on the deportation of individuals whom the Trump administration had deemed to be participants in hostile aggression against the United States. However, by the time the ruling was made, the planes had already departed, raising questions about the government's compliance with the court orders. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the administration acted legally, and the deportations took place before the injunction took effect. The people were deported under a more than 200-year-old law on enemy aliens, last used during World War II to intern Japanese, Germans, and Italians in the United States. Venezuela has sharply criticized the U.S. actions. According to Bukele, all of the deportees were immediately transferred to the Terrorist Detention Center, El Salvador's largest prison, which can hold up to 40,000 people. Vance hopes TikTok deal will be finalized by early April. Vice President J.D. Vance said Friday that he hopes to complete a deal that will allow TikTok to continue operating in the U.S. by early April, when the deadline expires. There will almost certainly be a high-level agreement that I think will meet our national security interests and allow TikTok to be a separate American entity, Vance told NBC News aboard Air Force Two. What's next for TikTok? Questions about the future of the popular video sharing app have been lingering since a law went into effect, requiring its Chinese parent company to sell TikTok or face a ban. The law went into effect on January 19. After taking office, President Donald Trump granted TikTok a 75-day reprieve by signing an executive order that delayed the law until April 5th. More than 30 U.S. soybean shipments are headed to China, with nearly half expected to arrive after Beijing's tariffs on U.S. agricultural products take effect next month, according to U.S. export data. While the final destination of the shipments could change, most of them were booked by China's state-owned Sinograin and are likely to be exempt from the duties, according to Bloomberg data. The Chinese government imposed a 10% tariff on U.S. soybeans, as well as tariffs on a host of other agricultural products, in the latest response to Washington's sweeping tariffs on Chinese exports. The tariffs went into effect on March 10, but shipments shipped before that date and arriving in China by April 12 will not be affected. According to Capeler, a research firm, shipments on those dates are estimated at 2 million tons. As of March 6th, the United States had about 1.36 million tons of unfulfilled sales to China, the USDA said in its latest estimate. The United States has asked Denmark and several other European countries to consider exporting eggs, as the American market is experiencing an acute shortage, and the cost of a dozen has already risen to more than $7, ProAgro Group writes. The request from the U.S. Department of Agriculture coincided with new tariffs on imports from Europe and threats of further economic sanctions. At the same time, President Donald Trump previously promised to reduce egg prices on the first day of his term. Since his inauguration, their cost has increased by 59%. American officials began negotiations with European producers in February regarding possible supplies of eggs to the U.S. market. In March, they sent a request to the Danish Egg Producers Association, trying to estimate the possible volume of exports. However, a representative of the association said that currently there is a shortage of eggs not only in the United States, but also in the world in general due to bird flu and increased demand. In addition, deliveries to the U.S. could be complicated by strict sanitary requirements. Following Denmark, Sweden also refused deliveries due to difficult logistics and export restrictions. And neighboring Finland said that deliveries were currently impossible, without going into details about the refusal. Experts believe that the Arctic is becoming a training ground for the Russian submarine fleet. Recent satellite images have captured a significant concentration of Russian submarine forces at the secret base of Zapadnaya Litsa, located on the Kola Peninsula near the border with Norway. The images, released on March 18th by OSINT analyst M.T. Anderson, clearly show 5 nuclear submarines NSSs, 3 Project 949 AM Ante, 1 Project 885 Yasen, and 1 improved Yasen M. The Zapadnaya Litsa base has long played a key role in Russia's naval strategy. It is located just 60 kilometers from NATO territory and is one of the main strongholds for Russian submarine forces in the Arctic. Both modernized Soviet submarines and the latest multi-purpose submarines are based there. Analysts say the Russian Northern Fleet's activity is linked to new geopolitical realities in the Arctic region. Melting ice is making it easier for submarines to move around, and observers suggest Russia is preparing for military exercises or new patrol missions. As Dr. Michael Peterson, director of the Russian Institute of Marine Studies at the U.S. Naval War College, notes, the Arctic is a training ground for Russia's submarine fleet, and Zapadnaya Litsa remains one of the main centers of Russian submarine power. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has rejected a French lawmaker's call to return the Statue of Liberty to France. According to her, the French should show more gratitude to the United States for its assistance in World War II. Leavitt said this during a briefing on Monday, March 17. According to her, Washington is not considering the possibility of returning the monument donated by the French people. My advice to the nameless low-ranking French politician is to remind yourself that it is only thanks to the United States that the French do not speak German now, so they should be very grateful to our country, the spokeswoman said. Recall that the day before, French MEP Raphael Glucksmann demanded that the United States return the Statue of Liberty, which was donated by France in honor of the centennial of American independence. The lawmaker believes that the states no longer embody the values that prompted Paris to donate the statue. Earlier, France responded to Trump's threats to impose a 200% tax on alcohol. The government refused to be intimidated. Trump and Putin agree on ceasefire on energy infrastructure. There will also be talks on a ceasefire in the Black Sea, the White House said. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin agreed that the movement towards peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire. Technical talks will also be held on the implementation of a naval ceasefire in the Black Sea, UNN reports, citing a White House statement. Trump and Putin agreed on a number of steps that should lead to a ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine. During a telephone conversation, they agreed on a ceasefire on energy and infrastructure. There will also be talks to implement a ceasefire in the Black Sea. These talks will begin immediately in the Middle East, the White House said. UNN previously reported that a White House spokesman told NBC News that the phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and had ended. The call lasted more than an hour and a half. Israel has significantly expanded and strengthened settlements in the occupied West Bank as part of its ongoing integration of the territories into the State of Israel, in violation of international law, the UN Human Rights Office said today. The report, to be presented to the UN Human Rights Council later this month, comes amid growing concerns about annexation amid shifts in U.S. policy under President Donald Trump and new settlement outposts in areas of the West Bank considered part of a future Palestinian state, Reuters reported. Around 100 companies and lobby groups, including defense giants Airbus and Dassault, have called on the European Commission to introduce measures to boost the development of technologies made in Europe so that the continent becomes less dependent on the U.S., with which it has started a trade standoff. This is reported by Politico. The current letter was sent to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the head of technology, sovereignty, security, and democracy, Henny Verkunen. It was signed, along with Airbus and Dassault, by French state investment bank Bpifrance, companies Scaleway, OVH Cloud, Nextcloud, France Digital, European Digital, SME Alliance, and Connect Europe, as well as small European technology companies Proton and Ecosia. Europe needs to become more technologically independent at all levels of its critical digital infrastructure, the statement said. The authors believe that requirements for governments to buy European products increase demand for domestic technologies, and a sovereign infrastructure fund should support investments in more capital-intensive industries, in particular, microchips and quantum technologies.